Hi, my name is RJ Lewis, founder of eHealthcare Solutions, and I want to welcome you to our Game Changer. This is a viewability best practices webinar where we're going to share real practical examples as to what we've done with various partners to improve viewability. It's worth noting that these are early days, and this is early data. Some of the changes we're going to show you are literally just days old. Most have at least a couple of weeks, if not a month or two, under their belt in terms of working examples. But there's clearly more rigorous testing to be done, more experimentation, as well as A/B testing of different layouts and formats. I want to encourage everyone that's listening to this webinar to share your results as well. I think as an industry, we're going to best serve advertisers if we can all be collaborative in the process as to what's really working to improve viewability. You're welcome to share that with us. We'll be a voice and a channel with future communications as well. And if you're uncomfortable sharing your specific site, you're welcome to share it with us anonymously. That works as well. So with us today, we have John Burke, our Chief Revenue Officer. Also, our audience development team, who's going to walk you through these examples. They're going to take over, and I'm going to pass over control to them in just a moment, but I want to introduce them first. We have Caitlin Marino, Daniel Mullen, and Brian Bonder, all of whom will walk you through a little bit of background on viewability as well as some real case examples. So I'm going to hand it over now to Caitlin.
Thank you, RJ. The purpose of this webinar is to review viewability and some of the best practices. Some of these are quick fixes, while others require some more time and development. If you have any questions throughout the call, please use the chat box in the webinar and we will answer accordingly. So some of the topics that we'll be covering is what is viewability, why it's important, non-human traffic, myth busting, best practices, including reduced latency and streamlining code, content, both standard ad sizes, page layout and placement, non-standard ad units, including fixed place or scrolling, lazy loading, and interstitials. Also talking about responsive site design. We'll go into a little bit of information on reporting and how we'll be reporting viewability, and then we'll review.
So to get started, what is viewability? Some of you may have participated in our expert panel discussion a couple of months ago, so this will just be a brief overview. A viewable impression is when 50% of the ad is on the screen for 1 second or more. It's important to understand, as RJ said, that we're just in the beginning of stage of viewability as a currency. This is all based on limited data and testing, and we'll pass on additional information as time goes on. I will now pass this over to Daniel Mullen, who will talk about why viewability is important.
Thank you, Caitlin. So I'm sure we've all been asking ourselves, why is viewability important? We've been measuring viewability for years, but why are we now making it a major focus? Well, as a preface, according to Google, more than half the ads online have no chance to be seen. And these ads aren't necessarily all below the fold either, but we'll get to that in a bit. At the moment, we are still in the process of determining what the unified standard for viewability is. While the IAB has defined what a viewable impression is, agencies and brands have developed their own standards as to the rates for which they'll be paying. Later in the presentation, we'll break down how certain agencies are setting expectations for the future, as there exist many opinions on the issue. However, until a unified standard is determined, it will be difficult to determine the true value of a viewable impression. What we do know is that viewable ads drive brand lift by 10.3%, while non-viewable ads contribute nothing at all. This is one of the main reasons why agencies are demanding for viewable impressions. Again, why is viewability important? Well, it comes down to revenue. Viewability will directly affect your bottom line. CMI, for instance, calls for a 70% viewability for 100% payment. Any rate below this threshold, 1% of the total revenue will be deducted for every percentage point under 70%. For example, a 60% viewability rate will reduce your payment by 10%. Anything under a 50% viewability rate is subject to cancellation. In addition, SSCG will also call for at least 70% viewability for payment. I must note that regardless of these rates, Individual brands have the option to require an even higher rate if they choose. In contrast, companies that share the opinion of Digitas believe that the technology is not advanced enough to be using viewability as a currency. There is currently significant discrepancy between measuring systems. Overall, as an effect, marketplace forces are probably going to pressure other agencies to fall in line with implementing viewability standards. Now I'm going to pass this over to Brian Bonder, and he's going to tell us about how non-human traffic affects viewability.
So one thing to consider before even understanding what is viewable and not viewable is who is viewing the ad. So bots and non-human traffic are something that have always been around, but when it comes to viewability, it's a more important topic. So non-human traffic refers to artificial web traffic, page views, or ad impressions generated by non-humans or bots. A bot or a spider is an application that runs automated tasks over the internet to generate these fake traffic, impressions, page views, etc. There are both good and bad bots. For instance, Google has bots every single day that go out to various websites and scrape them so that they can index accordingly to have your best search results. There are bad bots which are going to those same pages and generating the fake impressions. NHT is something that's not static. It's constantly evolving within the industry for finding new ways to be able to do what it does best. Out of the top 100 sites listed in ComScore, 91 of those sites have below a 5% NHT rate. The EHS network, viewed by ComScore, has a rate of 2.41%, so it's even lower than that. And as Moat has defined us, we are even below 1%. The impact of viewability and NHT is NHT generates a fake impression. So it's automatically assuming that that impression created by a bot or a spider is 100% viewable. So it skews any and all data. To combat this, CMI has put a foot down and said all NHT will not be paid on. There are a couple of different ways, as I mentioned a little earlier, that you can measure viewability. Viewability can be measured through ComScore. It can also be measured through Moat. And then there are some other ways that we are able to help resolve and combat non-human traffic. So DFP is actually our ad serving platform. On an ongoing basis, it is rectifying non-human traffic based off of a bot's tendencies on a site and off of the different information that a human versus a bot will pass to an ad server. So when a user's on a site, they're giving an IP address, their computer's operating system, and the web browser which they're utilizing. A bot does not share the same information with the ad server, so it's able to weed out this as non-human traffic.
I just wanted to add a point to Brian's explanation of bot traffic and point out that from an advertiser perspective, it's very logical. It makes perfect sense not to want to pay for non-human traffic. Non-human traffic, clearly, as by definition, the ad was never seen by a person. It's computer generated. Whether that was from a good bot or a bad bot is kind of indisputable. It's still not actually what the advertiser intended to buy. The area for disagreement, if there is one that's going to be hashed out over time, is more having to do with how that non-human traffic is measured. And the various viewability systems out there today measure it a little bit differently. Some are transparent about how they measure, some are not transparent, and everybody defines it a little bit differently. So from a philosophical standpoint, I think everybody's on the same page that non-human traffic is not something an advertiser should have to pay for. The question is, how is it measured?
Thank you, RJ. Moving on, another topic that I wanted to cover was kind of the myths around above the fold, below the fold, and in sight, meaning in view. So going back, everyone has the understanding that above the fold means that the impression is in view, and below the fold means that it's most likely not going to be an in-view impression. This is not the case, however. In general, viewable does not mean above the fold, and below the fold does not mean not viewable. In sight, to that point, in sight doesn't always mean in view. If an ad is placed above your logo all the way to the top of a page, a user's instinct may be to initially scroll down once they get onto the page, thus not fulfilling that 1 second criteria of viewable time. Another issue to be aware of is reducing latency on a site. So long page load times impact a user's experience and potentially limit inventory. Basically, less traffic on a site equals less inventory. And if a page is taking a long time to load, how far will a user go into the site? Long page loads are a result of communication between a site and the server. Google has an understanding and deems that a 200 millisecond time difference between site and server is acceptable. Anything over that should probably be looked into and rectified. Page load times also impact the impressions being loaded. If your site takes a long time to load and the creative doesn't actually make it to the user, then it's deemed a fake impression. Basically, they're getting to the page and they're already navigating away before an actual ad has the time to load.
Next, we'll talk about the content. You want the content on your site to reflect your site and be compelling so that visitors want to read and view the site. Deep, rich content means having in-depth quality content to keep viewers engaged on the page. The longer a viewer is on the page, the higher the chance all the ad spots will be viewable for 1 second or more. Ideally, you want to have an average page view time of about 2 minutes on each page. And this will help engage the visitor, whether your content is a video or an article. You want that content to be consistent and reflective of your site to continuously engage your visitor. On a positive note, most of our partners already have deep, rich, quality content. So this is something you can just keep continuing to do.
Let's talk about the IAB's standard ad sizes and their viewability rates. The most popular ad sizes are the 728 by 90, the 300 by 250, the 160 by 600, and the larger 300 by 600. As Caitlin mentioned earlier, these sizes by definition require 50% of the pixels of the ad to be on the screen for 1 continuous second or longer to be viewable. In the case of the larger rising star units, the IAB requires a lower rate. For example, the standard billboard at 970 by 250 requires only 30% of the pixels to be on screen for 1 continuous second. This size is the smallest of the ad units that allow for this lower viewability rate. In the case of the expandable units, there are a couple of ways that the ad can be measured as viewable. For example, the 300 by 250 standard rectangle sidekick can be measured in its smaller format at 50% viewability, or it can be measured in its larger expanded format, the 970 by 550, at 30% viewability. At the end of the day, it is the brand or agency's prerogative on which method to use to measure. Statistics show that users read pages in an F pattern, up and down, left and right. Here's an example of an unoptimized page layout of one of our partner sites, Diabetes and Control. The ads are laid out in a mirrored F pattern, contrary to how users read sites. Notice the 728 by 90 at the bottom of the page. There's almost no reason for a user to see this ad spot unless there is a core piece of content next to it. The two 300 by 250s on the bottom right also have a relatively strong chance of not being viewed. The ad spots in the middle of the page are great. However, the leaderboard all the way at the top of the page is now very debilitating to viewability rates. As one of the most popular ad placements, users can very easily scroll past this ad spot to relevant content further down the page, giving this ad spot no chance to be viewed. Quality versus quantity is another very important argument when dealing with viewability. Brian mentioned earlier that the above the fold, below the fold concept does not apply like it used to. The above the fold 728 by 90 ad spot in the previous example hurts viewability percentages. One thing that I want developers to avoid is adding too many ad spot pages in an effort to increase their viewability percentages. Google will penalize sites through search rankings that have too many ad placements above the fold. So essentially what we're looking for maximum optimization are 2 to 3 ad spots. Here are a few easy examples before we dive into a few more complicated ones. The 728 by 90 leaderboard in this example was moved from above the header to just below the logo. It is important to note that this particular site has a navigation bar that drops down, as many popular sites do. It is important to not place ads under the navigation bar as a fix, because the drop down will cover the ad spot itself, which is not beneficial to the advertiser. This improvement increased the viewability of this specific ad spot on Diabetes in Control from 34.6% to 72.6%. Furthermore, the 300 by 250 standard rectangle is quite a versatile ad size. We strongly recommend moving this ad within the content of the page. Obviously, putting ads in areas of high traffic or navigation is key. This will help increase click-through rate and overall engagement with the ads.
Now I will talk about a few additional non-standard ad sizes that you can include. The first being an interstitial ad unit. An interstitial ad unit is when the ad pops on the page and stays on it for a few seconds. Typically, this is the most viewable ad because it loads above the content and you can't skip it until a few seconds have gone. Keep in mind that even the most viewable ad unit will not hit 100% viewability because of non-human traffic. But in our experience, interstitials have very high viewability. Next, we'll talk about fixed place ad units. So I want you to see that on the left-hand side, we moved the leaderboard or the skyscraper from the right-hand side over to the left. As you can also see, as the video goes, the page is scrolling and ad unit is staying to the side. So this means that the ad unit is staying with the viewer no matter where they are on the page. This will definitely increase the viewability. The next piece to note is when the width of the browser window reaches a certain threshold, the ad unit is removed. So if you're viewing this on a mobile device or a smaller resolution screen, that ad unit won't even show and it won't record. So this will help with your viewability as well, because it will not be counted as measurable impressions for that user. By adding this ad unit onto Diabetes in Control, it increased that skyscraper from 78% viewability to 93% viewability, almost as close to 100% as you probably could get. It also increased the viewable time of the ad from 27 seconds to 65 seconds, according to Moat. And according to ComScore, actually showed that viewers are viewing the ad greater than 5 seconds more than 1 to 5 seconds. The last I'll talk about is lazy loading ad units. This is when the ad will only render once the viewer scrolls to that portion of the page or the content. If you watch the screen, just under May 19th, you'll see it'll start moving up, and as it does that, the content is slowly loading. This ad spot is ideal for leaderboards at the bottom of the page. This will decrease your inventory because the ad will only load and the impression will only be there once the user gets to that point of the page. But with that said, the unit will have high viewability because of when it will load. So it's a little bit of the best of both worlds. So now you can see this is Diabetes in Control after the viewability optimization. You can see that we moved the skyscraper on the right-hand side to the left, included an ad in the content, and move the leaderboard from above the logo to below the logo. These are the two sitting side by side, and for overall viewability on each page, it started at 40% and then moved to 80% viewability. So you can see that these are great resources and ways to change your site to increase your viewability.
Next, we'd like to talk about a mobile responsive site or a mobile optimized site. A responsive site design allows the site to recognize a user's resolution and display the site layout accordingly. On screen, there's an example of responsive site design for Bloomberg Business. If you shrink the resolution to a tablet size, the site layout adjusts accordingly for a tablet device. If you shrink the site resolution one more time, the site will adjust for a mobile or phone. In April 2015, Google released an algorithm change, which the industry nicknamed Mobilegeddon. The change was designed to give a boost to mobile-friendly pages in Google Mobile Search. Conversely, those sites which are not mobile-friendly would receive a negative impact on their Google Mobile Search. To put this into perspective, Google receives over 1 billion unique visitors monthly. This is more than Bing, Yahoo, and Ask.com combined. An example of the changes in search results can be seen when searching for the term control diabetes. From a desktop, if you search control diabetes in Google, diabetes and control will appear as the 14th search result on the second page. If you search the same terms, control diabetes, from a mobile device, diabetes and control will return as the 18th result on the second page. Google rates a site as mobile-friendly or not mobile-friendly by three characteristics. Notice on the left, Bloomberg Business is a mobile-friendly site displaying 2 articles. On the right, we have diabetes and control. Notice that the text is very small and difficult to read. The links are spaced too close together to have difficult navigation, and a mobile viewport is not set. Mobile responsive ad units are also very important when speaking about a mobile responsive site. On the screen we have 2 common ad units, a 300 by 250 and a 300 by 50. The publisher impact with not having a mobile responsive site is an overall decrease in traffic, a negative impact on mobile search results, since the user is not likely to get past the first 3 results on any page. And a site with non-mobile responsive / not mobile optimized is subject to poor campaign performance, thus campaign cancellation.
As far as analysis and reporting are concerned, we will use Moat and ComScore to measure viewability at the campaign and site levels. Essentially, the point of using 2 tools is not to get them to agree on the metrics themselves, but in getting them to agree that the changes made in each case study results in an improvement in viewability metrics in both tools. The data that you see here is based on the improvements that we helped diabetes and control make. Notice the difference in the numbers, but they both tell us the same story, that the viewability rate on the site was dramatically improved.
It's important to note that you will always get a difference in these numbers. There are several viewability tools out there. We addressed a lot of them in the earlier video webcast that we did, which is available on our website. But whether you're using Moat or ComScore or Double Verify or IAS or any number of other tools, no 2 measurement tools measure exactly the same. This is one of the challenges in the debates around the timing of tying viewability to payment, because the numbers can be so radically different. This is a great example of how different they can be, and it's not an uncommon example. We've seen differences as much as 35% between different tools in terms of what they're measuring. Use will give you different results.
So we will, for our publishing partners, actively manage and monitor campaigns to keep viewability rates nominal. When making changes to optimize reviewability on your site's pages, please allow for at least a week of delivered impressions to provide a statistically significant number of viewable impressions. We at EHS will act as consultants to our publishing partners that are struggling with viewability to get them ready for future viewability requirements. We expect these requirements to increase year over year going forward, and eHealthcare Solutions plans to remain as thought leaders on this issue. Please feel free to reach out to us with any questions you have. We will be happy to work through any issues you have with viewability.
At this time, we're going to open it up to any questions. If you have questions, please feel free to enter them into your chat window, and we'll address them as they come in.
As we're bringing those in, to review, we went over the different best practices that you can have for your site. Following this, we will send available materials we have now, which includes the viewability toolkit and the expert panel video from our previous webinar. And to follow up, we will, in the coming weeks, we will include additional information and case studies on these viewability best practices. So keep a lookout for those.
Okay, so one question is, Twitter is promising 100% video viewability. How do you think that impacts the stance on pharma ad viewability? Well, Twitter's using essentially the lazy loading methodology. So if you go to your Twitter stream and you open up a browser and scroll down, you'll see that various feeds fill in as you scroll further down the page. So you will definitely improve your viewability. The 100% guarantee is really, it's a theoretical limit on true viewability, because you're always going to have discrepancies, and that only increases with a large file such as video. So in essence, what they're likely doing is over-delivering to get to that 100% number. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see other publishers offer 100% viewability. It's a unique competitive advantage to do it. If you have the inventory to support it and you can over-deliver, it's likely that will happen. Whether that happens at current CPM prices or whether that happens at increased rates is another debate. But anyone can offer 100% viewability. You most likely have to deliver much more in order to achieve it. So another question that came in was, what's the perspective on using fixed ad spots but refreshing them after a certain amount of time, such as 10 seconds? I think it's an interesting question and an interesting debate that will ensue. Traditionally, web advertising is fixed to a page view. So when you reload the page, you get displayed a new group of ad units. In essence, lazy loading does this to some extent, because theoretically, if you have a large stream like Twitter or like a Yahoo with their news feed, which is never ending seemingly, you can, in theory, as long as you have an engaged user who continues to read, you can deliver 50 or 60 ads on a page over time. So the notion of refreshing within a specific spot, I think as long as you're transparent with the advertiser that that's what they're purchasing, I don't think it's an issue. I think if you are not transparent, the de facto standard is that one ad will be loaded in a given position upon each page view. So if you're refreshing the ad spot only on a timer, whether 10 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever, but you haven't disclosed that to the advertiser, it's going to be considered fraud. If you have disclosed it to the advertiser and they're aware of what they're buying, I do think that's an opportunity. Another question is, as publishers implement new ad units to improve viewability, are there measurement tools that we can use to track performance within EHS or within DFP? For example, AdSense and other ad networks allow publishers to define and track multiple ads daily, weekly, monthly, click-through revenue, etc. Yes, there are definitely tools that can be used. We're working with our publishers now on a revised reporting dashboard that includes viewability. So if you have an interest in that and you want to start to receive that information on a more frequent basis, we can certainly do that for you. We can automate reports that come out daily, weekly, monthly, with whatever frequency you want to receive them. We are using, as Daniel mentioned earlier, we're using Moat. We're using ComScore. We're also using DoubleClick Active View is another viewability tool that we're testing and using. So we can provide data from all of those sources where applicable. Okay, so with that, we'd like to conclude. We want to thank you for your time today. If you have any questions, please, as always, don't hesitate to contact us. Contact information is up on the screen, and we're happy to participate and help you through this interesting wrinkle in terms of measuring viewability. We're also, we have a viewability center on our website where we're hosting materials such as the webinar that we did a month and a half ago, and other information as well, articles, topics, so you can further educate yourself. Thank you again for participating.